I mean, what we do all the time is we're constantly cycling back and forth between making decisions from the head and the heart, likewise. And if we want to, say, acquire some sort of greatness, we constantly have to switch back and forth and learn to trust which component at what point in time.
Greetings, I'm Mark Riley, and welcome to the Washington Tattoo Podcast, where the world's musical traditions come to life. The Washington Tattoo is an international music and arts festival coming to the Washington, D.C. metro area. Our podcast explores the lives and stories of world-renowned musicians, dancers, producers, choreographers, artists, educators, arts advocates, and those who serve our cultural communities at large. For more information and donations, find us at www.thewashingtontattoo.com. Now please enjoy this episode of the Washington Tattoo Podcast, sharing the power of the arts, one story at a time. All right, greetings everyone. I have Claus Hessler here on the other end of the line in Germany. Claus is a drummer extraordinaire, educator, recording artist, clinician, consummate professional, arranger, historian, and just overall great human being. So Claus, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today.
Thank you so much, Riley. My pleasure to be guest on your show. Yeah.
Awesome. So I love drawing from one's past to kind of find inspiration for the future. And I know, especially as a musician, you're always looking at, where did you find that first spark? And you kind of look back to that. Could you speak on maybe who was your first inspiration and why?
I mean, speaking about first inspirations, of course, there are different perceptions or different perspective of first. If you're referring to the very first inspiration, say it may have been the drummer in the brass band of my father, where my father and my brother were playing, and I would look at the drummer and get attracted by what he was doing, and just in my foolish, childish, say, way of looking at things, how the hell does he play all these instruments? How can a person do that? I mean, that for sure would be one of my super first inspirations. I would add the aspect that there were many other, say, first inspirations with certain styles or certain genres of music / drumming, but I would say one of my first really big time inspirations was for sure when my drum teacher gave me a record with Rush, with Neil Peart, obviously, who just passed away a couple of weeks ago. The album was called Permanent Waves, which is still one of my favorite Rush albums, which may not be for every Rush fan the favorite album, but I think that was one of my big time first inspirations, I would say. Yeah, and it stayed like that for a relatively long time. So I became a huge Rush fan. For sure, I did look into other stuff, but that was my first big one.
Oh, that's great. I love it. I know you and we've got to meet in person a handful of years ago, well, probably a couple of years ago now at PASIC, and had a great dinner together and talked about drumming and history and philosophy and why kind of music has the power that it has, for not just ourselves, but I think also as, humanity music has a great impact on humanity. So, I mean, music and drumming more specifically, you can even talk about both. Can you talk about maybe why you feel music has the power that it does have on human beings?
That's an interesting question to elaborate on. I mean, first of all, I think music and in my case, the drumming also, the combination of music and drumming. I mean, what we do all the time is we're constantly cycling back and forth between making decisions from the head and the heart, likewise. And if we want to, say, acquire some sort of greatness, we constantly have to switch back and forth and learn to trust which component at what point in time. And trusting both the head and the heart whenever the time for it and the opportunity for it seems reasonable is something that I like about the platform of music to give art some sort of expression to the outside and to have some outlet for my, say, artistic values. I think in a nutshell it may be about that. There may be more components to it, but it's that mixture that I like so much. And you may be aware of it or not. It may be a subconscious thing to many people, but this head and heart thing and switching back and forth and knowing when to trust what, that's what attracts me, I think.
I love it. That's a fantastic answer. And I mean, I know when we all start off as drummers, we're working about technique, we're working about hands, we're working about speed, we're working about chops.
Yeah.
But I think at some point we always end up getting to a place where that's always kind of a means to an end. And so the drumming is kind of a tool, or music ends up being a tool to really connect. Like, I love what you said about the heart. And I think when I was a younger drummer, a younger musician, that was such a foreign concept for me. I mean, do you have any idea of like maybe when you started kind of thinking that way?
I mean, looking back from now, honestly I can't tell. I mean, a lot of the conceptual aspect and the why I do certain things and why do I like it and why do I do it in this or that or yet another way, that came only much later. I mean, you look back in retrospective and all of a sudden you notice, oh, it's because the way it is. You don't even have to think that hard about it. All of a sudden it strikes you like, oh, how come that I didn't realize that before? It's not always a process of active thinking. Let me think, why do I like music? Let me write down some clever words. And it's not like that. At times it just comes to you in that phase between sleep and awake.
Right.
It may be that, and on top of that, I mean, music, although there's a lot of scientific aspect to it as well, still it speaks directly to your heart. It connects with people on a platform that we can't always explain with scientific means.
Oh, I love that, because it was one thing that always struck me was there's this balance between great performers and how they perform and how it touches someone, where there's definitely science involved, but science only goes to such an end where what's happening between that performer and that audience member, there's something just intangible there that it's magic. And that's, I mean, the beauty of music. I think you have this conversation between science meeting art, and you have the technical components, artistic components, and then all of a sudden it's just so individualized in how someone perceives it. And that's fantastic.
Absolutely, and it all comes down to the aspect of say, musical imagination. You have to have some sort of understanding of what it is you want to say. It may be very detailed and very sharp and very clear and concrete, or it may be rather cloudy, not knowing super exactly what to do, but you have to have some sort of musical imagination. And then you take action, which usually includes some sort of technique, coordination aspect, hearing skills and all of that. But understanding that the technique part of things is only the tool you use to realize your musical, say, imagination. That's something that you have to understand at some point, because, I mean, at the end of the day, you'll find out there are musicians who have beautiful technique and outstanding coordinative skills, but they don't seem to touch you. You admire the physical ability of doing something in a certain setting, at a certain speed, whatever the combination is. But you also run into people who obviously don't have any kind of, say, proper technique at all, and still they say beautiful things on their instrument. And that is always something bizarre because
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and I think that's interesting too, because you touched on two great points to kind of jump into our next topic. You know, thinking about the heart, thinking about technique. I don't think there is really a bigger person out there with a greater or bigger heart with incredible technique than Jim Chapin. He would sit at the PAS booth for hours and just talk with, you know, kids, talk with anybody, and just drum along with them. And I know he was a big inspiration for you as well. I mean, can you just talk about maybe your relationship with Jim a little bit?
Oh, sure. I mean, first of all, I mean, I think I never met a person that had a more unique combination of both a genius mind and having such a big heart, as you would just imagine, and as you were just saying. And the thing about Jim also was his passion for teaching. And no matter if it was the seasoned pro that he was talking to, or the beginner kid that just was curious, what is this old man doing over here on a piece of rubber? I mean, he treated everybody with the highest respect. It was not just, oh, I'm going to talk to you because I saw your picture somewhere in a magazine. You seem to be in a well-known band. Go away, I'm going to talk to you. Jim was never like that. He treated everybody in the same way, and he was, I think, the smartest person that I ever met. You could talk to Jim about anything, and he would have to share some piece of information that you would never think of. I mean, no matter if it be sports, politics, music, history, you name it, he seemed to be an expert at most any field of interest that you could think of.
It's what's that the commercial, the most interesting man in the world kind of thing.
Yeah, it was, and he kept amazing us with simply by knowing everything which we thought there is to know about any topic. I mean, just
that's incredible. So, I mean, that's something also that I really think is interesting is being an educator. I have the heart of an educator. I love seeing little children get the light bulb when they can first play their paradiddles. And I've also heard the concept of leveling up and like surrounding yourselves with people that force you to kind of level up. And so if you had advice for someone who is trying to level up, say in the music field, like they're on the cusp, what would be some advice you would share with someone trying to make music into a career?
Well, first of all, I mean, the essential presumption I would say is you have to love what you do. And you don't have to explain it to yourself or to convince yourself, should you do that. It's just that inner urge of, there is no other way for me than playing the drums. In case you doubt if that's the case, step back and think twice, because it may not be for you. I mean, not, at least not on a professional level. Also, I would say, do not think about money too much, because in case you were after money, you would for sure pursue a different career. Also, what I look at as a very important aspect is you have to stay curious throughout your whole life. You have to be willing to be a constant learner, and there is no end to learning. And say rediscovering yourself from time to time, almost, I would say, which also includes the aspect of, oh boy, a couple of years ago I still did things this way, but I'm starting to get a different perspective on that. I'm starting to change that. I'm fine-tuning what I do. I'm in a natural evolution of things, which allows me to move from the good to the better in a constantly evolving cycle, if you will. And I mean, finally, you have to, it seems you have to balance things. You have to balance the music and the drumming with family, art, and teaching, and performing, and writing. The complete business side of things, you have to understand a little bit about sound engineering, you have to understand a little bit about camera technique, you have to understand social media. It's like a wild array of different things that you need to have down these days, which was not the case many years ago when guys like Jim were around. They just played great, and they were great human beings, and in case you were at the proper time, at the proper spot at the proper time, you had good chances to make a great career. It's not like that anymore, I'm afraid to say. But
Well, no, and that's a great point. So I had a conversation with Jeff Movahill from Mapex not too long ago, and he was discussing that progression of what we were just talking about. You have to learn the technique. You have to, being a great player is just a must. So being a great player, and then all of a sudden you start realizing that you almost need to be your own statesman for you. And how do you relate to other people, and are you able to combine and bring people together because of your personality? And as a drummer, I think that's a critical component for any really successful band, is if you are the drummer and you're the timekeeper, you're also kind of the gatherer. If you can bring people in and usually kind of watch, somebody in the band, like if it's a rockin' band, you're seeing all of the eye contact happening throughout the ensemble, and you can feel it. And it's not just technique, and it's sometimes not just the eye contact, but that person playing knows who they are, that person playing knows who they are, and then when they put all their pieces together, it's exciting because it's all one ensemble, and no one's doing it kind of for them. They're doing it for the entire ensemble.
very true, and that also connects with the power you have on the whole ensemble, and the impact you have on the music as a drummer, because no other instrument can, say, control and steer music like a drummer can. I mean, a conductor may tell us, do it this way, do it that way, but ultimately it's the drummer that the band is following. I mean, let's face it. So if you're aware of that control, and if you can manage to sort of organize that, how would you say, that power that you have, and that responsibility, that's something completely unique.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So kind of circling back to the idea of leveling up, you've put out, I think your most recent book is the Camp Duty Update. And there are definitely, I mean, there is this idea of tradition that's obviously in there, but now there's this idea of hybriding tradition with some modern techniques. So how did you start to, like, obviously start with maybe like your love for history and kind of doing some of the research there? But then if you could also talk about like how you decided, or how did you think of hybriding the two ideas, something modern and something traditional together?
Interesting question, yes. I mean, first of all, the idea that about writing the book actually was that I noticed, especially with rudimental drumming, there's a lot of, say, half-truth and sort of mystical dust around it.
Like almost like mythological.
Sure, and I learned that at the same time, it almost seemed like the drumming and the music at a certain point kind of separated, because I mean we all may have a poster of a certain stick company inside our practicing room, and we learn the rudiments, but very few people still know what the three camps or the melody of the three camps are supposed to sound like. I mean, who could whistle the melody, or the Downfall of Paris, or Dixie, or the Turkey in the Straw, or whatever the classics may be, back in the day, it was always about the five theme, it was about the music, and it was about how the drumming connects with the music. And the five melody and its rhythmic structure would pretty much dictate how you would phrase your drumming. And if you take the music away, people are kind of left alone in the process of, well, how about that double stroke inside the double drag tab? How close or how dense or how open should that be? And you find people who say, oh, it's got to be as close as possible because that's the real thing. And others would say, it needs to be wide open, like, and everything else is wrong. And for sure, I mean, the truth is somewhere in the middle, but I mean, that natural and authentic way of how you phrase rudiments can only be thought of, I think, if you don't forget about the musical part of it, which, of course, includes the five melody. So reuniting the drumming and the music, that was a big aspect in the how would I write this book and why would I write this book.
I love that you bring that up real quick. Frederick Fennell, the famed conductor of the Eastman Wind Ensemble, grew up in a fife and drum corps with his parents in Ohio, and then became this world-renowned conductor. In his book, The Drummer's Heritage, he talks about that you don't do the rudiments any justice if you don't associate them with the melodic line. So I think you're spot on with that comment. That's fantastic.
Yeah, and I mean, there's also this favorite, another favorite recording out of mine, which is with Frederick Fennell and the Eastman Wind Ensemble, which is called The Spirit of 76. So, I mean, that's something that everybody can get a hold of, and just listening to the music, and all of a sudden people would realize, okay, that's the way how the three cams really sound. And
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's not a drum solo. People think of it as a drum solo, but it had a purpose.
Music, yeah, and with regards to the second part of your question about the contemporary share of things which are happening in Camp Duty Update. I mean, I'm presenting these old melodies and say rudimental classics in their mostly original shape, but there's also an updated version that I came up with which pretty much is adding two components. Which the first one is the influence from both French and ancient Swiss / Basel rudimental drumming, but also the Chapin concept of collapsing and expanding rudiments. And especially, I mean, if you look at certain Swiss and French patterns, of which most of them are actually not known that much in the US. I mean, you know them for sure. You know the finals, and you know the Tagwacht, and you know the Mermeli and all of that. But I mean, usually people don't know.
Yeah, it's not common here at all. Yeah, exactly.
Common, and if you further investigate on the structure of these, you find out that that a lot of that can be explained in front of a methodology background of say quintuplets. And this is how things connect to a more contemporary, also drum set approach, because obviously, say the more exotic rhythmic grids are, I mean, strongly in the focus of modern drum set players today, and this is where super old, ancient rudimental drumming all of a sudden connects perfectly with modern drum set applications, and it's actually 90% of my drum solo vocabulary comes directly from finals and reversed finals and Tagwacht stuff and all of that. It's inspired by that and just a little twisted and arranged, but it comes from that.
Yeah, and just to, if anyone's unfamiliar with what we're talking about now, you definitely need to go check out the city of Basel, Switzerland for an event called Fasnacht, which is a traditional carnival where they dress up in masks and they play fifing and drumming for 3 days straight. It's an amazing, amazing event. And I always kind of say, if you're not really a drummer until you go and see this at least once. And John Wooten had come out a couple of years ago, and his mind was blown. And I think it's one of those things where we're talking about history, we're talking about music, we're talking about culture, but it's still super relevant today if we learn about our history and we learn how to apply lessons learned or techniques, or even where did something come from. I love that you're bringing up the idea that you're taking the idea of French drumming, Swiss drumming, and you're talking now also a little bit about American style, and then applying that to drum set. And that is leveling up to the highest degree, and that's inspiring for me. So I have to say thank you for having the mind to think about that, because a lot of people ask, like, what is the relevancy for rudiments? Why should we play this? Why should we play that? And I think you started the conversation with melody. And when you start thinking about the shape and contour of a melodic ascending or descending line, the rudiments are just not 16th notes with stickings and accents. There are shapes and rhythm. There's actually like little contours within the 16th notes. We're getting really super nerdy drumming here, but I love this kind of stuff. Awesome. So I think we kind of touched a little bit on this too, but I'd love to talk about, you're obviously always trying to get better. And I know that sometimes we reach a little bit of burnout. Sometimes you reach a little bit of like, I've just been doing this for such a long time. Are there any tips you would share with anyone that maybe they're in that kind of rut? Is there like a quote or a book or something that you could share to someone that maybe is kind of in a rut at the moment about playing?
Well, at times I find that since you mentioned books, I mean, reading can be a great thing to do on a side, and it can be any kind of book, but it may be something drum related or completely not. But at times I make little marks in the books I read with a sentence that just catches my attention. So with regards to say practicing and being stuck in a rut and not getting anywhere, there's one sentence I found in a book during the research for Camp Duty update, which is from I think either the Samuel Potter book, or I would have to go back and research honestly, but the sentence is, "Take pride in making it look easy and beat your duty with spirit."
I love it. I love it.
What a great sentence. Take pride in making it look easy. And especially that first part is pretty much the highest standard that I look into when I practice something on the drums. I try to make things not just look easy, but it has to feel easy. I have to be under the impression of things need to be effortless. And that's for me way more important than doing something fast. If I can play it effortless under the impression of, oh, I can do this forever and I just enjoy this playing over and over again, at a certain point it will also be fast, and if I want to push that button, I would, but I don't have to. And so reading and just, or it may be totally the opposite. Just forget about everything and go out in the green and just take a walk. Don't think about anything. Look at the clouds. Just do nothing. Yeah. And to some degree, I'm remembering things that my father used to say, or both of my grandfathers. Say there's one sentence that doesn't translate completely to English, but my father used to say, raise your head in terms of put your head up or bear up, no matter if your neck is dirty. I just like that. So I mean, it just goes to say, no matter how tough times are, don't worry, you're going to make it through it. So raise your head, although your neck may be dirty. Yeah. I'm sure you get it, right?
I love it.
Okay, so yeah.
Well, I think that's part of it as well. I mean, you're talking about lineage and history and having, this idea of a memory of, thinking about your father and your grandfather. So if you were to go back in time and your current self could give advice to your 20-year-old self, what would you tell yourself?
That's an extremely good question, and I'm not sure if I have a good answer for this one. I think I would I would encourage the younger me to not take things too seriously.
I love it. Yeah.
No matter what it is, don't take things too seriously, because whatever I thought many years ago would be super important, many times it turned out it wasn't that important, and also the other way around. I mean, just balancing things and looking at stuff from a more relaxed position. I think that is what I would tell somebody who is in his 20s and is, oh, this, I need to do that. Relax. You're gonna see it kind of levels out, and it's not as important as you think. It's cool that you worry about it, but you'll notice the real dimension once you're 10 years older.
I think that's remarkable. I mean, the idea of having the experience. I mean, there's so much we cram our brains with for education, which is something I think I champion the idea of education. The scary thing is that the 20-year-old mind can only handle so much at once. And the experience and the application of that education is going to not last throughout the rest of your life, but the situations on how you apply it and where you apply it also starts to kind of come into question. Because I remember sitting through a master class in college, and it was, you know, the choir director, and he said, you know, who in this room is 18 years old? And a couple people raised their hands. Okay, who is 19 years old? And they're like, oh, okay. How different are you from 18 to 19? Everyone's like, oh, I'm pretty different. And then they say, well, who are our 21-year-olds? And there's like a handful of people raise their hand. You go, how different are you at 21 than you were at 19? And they're like, totally different. Then you had some master students that were in there, and they said, who's 25 or older? And like, I don't know, 2 people raised their hands. And then the professor goes, how different are you from 19 to 25? And they're like, I'm not even the same person. And so, and it always was funny to me because, I mean, in my current job that I have now, I mean, it's like drinking out of not just one fire hose, but you're kind of getting blasted by 5 or 6 fire hoses all at once. And you have to start to kind of level off your priorities and what you do find important, just exactly like you said. And that's something I feel like it's very funny. I have children, and they've gone and they've watched a show that's on PBS called Daniel Tiger, and it's this little tiger kind of based off of Mr. Rogers. And there's an episode where Daniel gets angry, and mom and dad tell him to take a breath, count to 4, it'll be okay. And I'm going, man, I should have told my 19 or 20-year-old self to take a breath, count to 4, it'll be okay. Well, awesome. So you are obviously extraordinarily accomplished, and from a teacher's point of view and a performer point of view, a researching point of view, do you have a greatest or a favorite musical memory?
A musical memory, okay. I mean, there would be quite some, but when I think back now, there's a handful that are sticking out, I would say. For instance, I think one of the first times when I watched a James Taylor show with Steve Gadd, which is actually not that long ago, but still it's one of my greatest musical memories. They were playing a big venue in Germany, and the song was I don't even remember what the song was, but it was during the verse. Steve was playing like super low, just a bit bass drum and hi-hat, and the crowd was like completely quiet, nothing was happening, and the song proceeds to the chorus, and Steve plays the first count of 2, the backbeat, and on the count of 4, like 5,000 people are clapping, and they kept clapping without being, say, conducted whatsoever until the end of the chorus, where they kept quiet, and that procedure repeated for the next chorus, and nobody actually knew what was happening, and it gave me goosebumps for days.
Amazing.
And I have no idea how Steve communicated that. It was obviously in how he did things, but in a such unpretentious and non-virtuoso way. It just happened because it happened, and because he played the way he played. And I thought, how powerful is that? If there's anything that I would like to have happen for me as a performer at one point, it would be that.
Yeah, I love it. That's incredible, because it's one of those things where you witnessed the power of music firsthand as a participant, but then also having the education of the technical skills and everything else, and you're going, that's that perfect combination, that point in space where it all just seemed to work. It all was magical.
Yeah, it really was. And it was magical on a level which included no virtuosity. It included the 2 and 4 and the and nothing else.
I love it. I love it. So, do you have, we're going to kind of wrap up with a few questions here. Do you have anything currently that you're working on, or personally or professionally?
Well, I mean, personally, I need to do some work around the house, in the garden here, like cutting back bushes and trees and all of that, which takes place tomorrow. So that's going to be a big point in the agenda. But you may not be interested in that.
I've been moving rocks in my backyard. It's been a lot of fun.
Very good though. And I mean, on a professional level, we're in the very final steps of releasing a couple of online courses on Swiss rudimental drumming with a platform which is called OPEN-HANDED.com. So that's about to come very soon now, and it's pretty much like an entry to Swiss rudimental drumming from scratch. And as you for sure know, people are usually having the challenge of, okay, how do I read Berger notation? What's the phrasing like? Who in the world would tell me how this piece is to be executed and how it's to be interpreted? It really works on exactly that. So this is about to be released very soon now, openmindeddrumming.com. I'm writing another book which is about collapsed rudiments, the quantum foam of drumming, as the working title is. Let's see how this turns out. So I'm still collecting more material and engraving music, trying out things and looking at all the different possibilities that these things are offering. There's an ebook coming out now fairly soon with Camp Duty Update with added fife notation also as well. So you can really combine the drumming and the music with your fife playing friends, in case you have some.
Well, I think that's incredible right there for any of our, university educators that are out there interested in getting into this genre. I mean, I started working with West Virginia University a handful of years ago, and they created their own fife and drum ensemble. So, I mean, you're looking at, university level players. It's definitely, they've got the basic techniques down, and they're looking to find exactly what you're saying. The old school meets the new school, and put fifes and drums to it. So I know that Marshall University has a fife and drum corps. I know that Ohio State had a fife and drum corps. And there are some schools now in the US that are finding the value in exactly what you're saying. And honestly, you're a great spokesperson for this idea of taking that history, learning the lessons of the history, applying new stuff with it, and saying, look, this is how life works. You take the old and the new, you create something new, and you've got a great new recipe.
Yeah, sure. And finally, I mean, it's all about looking into the history part of things and not forgetting about the history while you look into the future. And especially with an instrument like ours, which I mean, I'm now referring more to the drum set, but But with the drum set, there is no fixed methodology out there, which would be like in that settled mode, how you would say, for hundreds of years, as it is with violin or piano. It's still in the process of, okay, we're putting some sort of mindset together of how this thing is supposed to be taught. And at the same time, we are already in the beginning steps of forgetting what our foundation and the history of drumming really is, with the roots in Europe and how it was brought up in Switzerland and France and then exported to the New World, which later became the US, and things took different turns, and certain stuff got re-exported to Europe and all of that, and we're in the beginning steps of forgetting that. What a shame.
No, and I think that's another reason why it's so great to capture conversations like this, because there are a lot of people really interested in it, and there are great organizations that are helping to try to put grants out there and do the research to bring, it's bringing back all of our collective culture. At the end of the day, every society around the world has some form of drumming, and then you talk about patterns in drumming, and so as soon as you can start taking history and the future ideas that could influence the history going to its next step, you can go anywhere in the world and take that concept and figure out what is the tradition with African drumming and where it is today. Where is the tradition in, Middle Eastern drumming and where is it today? And you're seeing kind of a generation of folks now, and we're lucky enough that we get to see those folks at PASIC and other drumming events like NAMM or things like that, where you're watching people do this in real life. And I mean, it's such a beautiful idea that music can do that for society. And I think that's kind of where you and I feel honestly blessed to be able to have this conversation with you and see eye to eye on so many things about just how people treat each other and how music can help, humanity just be better.
Yeah, sure. That's perfect.
Yeah. Excellent. So, I have to say, from me to you, my friend, this has been an honor to speak with you this morning. If anyone is interested in checking out more about Claus, check his Facebook, Instagram, YouTube channels, as well as his website, klaushessler.com. And again, Claus, thank you so much, my friend. It is an honor and a privilege to know you, and thank you for taking the time with us today.
Thanks for being on the show, and all the best to you, Mark, and whatever your projects are. I know it's for sure great, and I admire your drumming. Totally. I'm a fan.
Thank you, my friend. Hello again, everyone. I hope you're enjoying this episode of the Washington Tattoo Podcast. We'd like to take a second to thank a new special supporter of this tattoo podcast project, Tap Space Publishing. They are offering Washington Tattoo Podcast listeners a 10% discount code on their entire purchase. So if you type in the discount code WA-TATTOO in all capitals, you'll receive 10% off your entire purchase until December 31st of 2020. Again, in all capitals, that discount code is WA-TATTOO. And again, thank you so much to Jim Casella and Murray Gussick for your support of our project. We just wanted to take a second to say thank you to Seif Studios for their creative media. If you want to find out more about Seif Studios, look them up on www.seifstudios.com. We'd also like to say thank you to our educational partner, ProLogix Percussion, American-made drum pads. They're doing a special discount code for our listeners today. So if you go to www.prologixpercussion.com and type in TWT20, you will receive 20% off your entire order. So thank you very much for tuning in today, and please check out our supporters.